We are going to be working with the registration and login process that is built into MVC. It utilizes their identity system. So you are going to be learning how to work with that to basically log in, manage your account, create user roles, etc. So before we actually get started, we're going to do a little bit of background on authentication. Basically, when you create a brand new app, and I can actually show you where this is. If we go to File and New, and let's say we're going to do a new project. I have to stop what I have running here, and then it'll let me. After we indicate that this is an MVC project, we will be at a screen where we indicate model view controller and we can pick authentication. We have three choices: individual, user accounts, work or school, or Windows. And what we want is the individual accounts. And the reason why is because the Windows-based, this is the type of authentication you would use on an intranet. It uses your Windows login to authenticate you. And basically, authentication just says you are the person that you say you are, based on the credentials that you gave when you logged in. Individual user account, this utilizes the built-in registration system, and this system is encrypted with usernames and passwords, and it is fully featured. Although all of the features are not available out of the box, we have to actually install them. And there is third-party authentication. Third-party authentication involves using Google, Facebook, Twitter, any of the social media platforms. You basically log in. The social media sends a message back to your MVC app saying that you logged in successfully, and then the MVC associates your identity with a successful login, and then you're authenticated. So this whole process is much more complicated than it used to be. For the identity services, out of the box, if you have chosen individual user accounts, you are going to have add default identity in configure services. That's in there automatically. You will also, in the configure method, have use authentication and use authorization. So those are part of the pipeline for authenticating, and they will already be in the startup file if you have chosen to authenticate as an individual user. For third-party authentications, you actually have to install middleware for each third party that you are going to use. And so the package that you need to install in NuGet, I've listed in this little table, and I've also got a complete list at this link. Okay, but you can see that each one is going to have a little different NuGet package that you have to use. Then you will also have to modify configure services. The process to add these third parties is a little bit different in each one, but you end up having to get a developer account. You have to get basically a secret code in addition to a regular code, and those have to be configured in the services. We are not going to be walking through all of that today. Our focus today is going to be on what is built into MVC. And what is built into MVC is fairly complex, but it is not difficult to use. So for those of you that are interested in external providers like Facebook, I did include a link. And there is information on all of these providers that you can access right from this link. In addition, it tells you how to add the different services. If you're going to use third-party authentication, you do need to be aware of OAuth2 and OpenID Connect. OAuth2 stands for Open Authorization. The current version is 2.0. The older version really isn't around, but it's not compatible with that. Anyway, OAuth lets the user select a social media login to authenticate their identity. Then basically, after you log into your social media, the social media provider sends MVC confirmation that you logged in and you are who you say you are, which is the point of authorizing. What is OpenID Connect? It's just an identity layer that kind of works over the top of OAuth2. It uses the same REST protocol, but it adds a little more security and consistency. Older versions of MVC use OWIN instead of OpenID Connect. And OWIN is just Open Web Interface. It defines a level of abstraction between our .NET web servers and our web applications. ASP.NET Core MVC can still use OWIN, so it does not hurt to be aware of what it does. Okay, and basically the job of OWIN is to make it easier to create middleware for .NET Core development. So if you want more information on OWIN, I have a link. But what we're going to be really working with is ASP.NET Core Identity. ASP.NET Core Identity is an API, and it supports logins. It's kind of a full user registration management system, meaning you can create your login, you can add personal information to it, you can change your password, you can delete your login, you can add two-factor authentication. Okay, it's got all of that built in. So when you create an application with the individual user login, you are using the identity feature. Unfortunately, it's not giving you all of the bells and whistles, but there is a workaround for that. How this process works is a user requests a page. The server receives the request and checks to see if the user has been authenticated. If you have logged in and you are authenticated, what happens is that a session cookie is sent to the client and it is stored there. And then when the client makes a request, it returns that session cookie. Okay, so if you request a page and there isn't a cookie there, it redirects the browser to the login page. And remember from when we learned about the session cookies, you can make it so that the cookie is saved on the system, even if the user's computer is blocking cookies. Remember, there's an option that you can turn on that forces that cookie on their computer. Okay, so if you don't find the cookie, okay, then that means they haven't logged in. It's not that they're blocking cookies. Okay? And if it does find the cookie, it checks to see if the user is authorized to view the page. So if they are authorized, they can access the page. If they aren't, then they're going to get routed to a page that says access denied. So as I mentioned, by default, the authorization cookies are session cookies. They are good for the current internet session. There is a checkbox that the user can click on that basically will make that cookie persist among different sessions. Okay, but if they don't turn the checkbox on, then it's only good for the current session. It'll still be stored on their computer. They make a request, it still is going to have to check, okay? But that's an extra step that it wouldn't need to do if they chose to make it persist. Benefits of using identity. The ASP.NET Core Identity System replaces the old system, which was hard to customize. So this new system is easier to customize. It's easier to update, it's easier to unit test, and that does make it more complicated. So I would not say that it is easier to learn, okay? When you add in all the flexibility, it tends to make things a little harder to learn. But it is a better system. It is available on all ASP.NET frameworks, including web forms. It supports claim-based authentication. It uses a security token service, which is an industry standard. It kind of works behind the scenes. And it uses OWIN, Open Web Interface for .NET middleware. And we talked about OWIN. It also uses ASP.NET identity classes. And the different classes that you can work with, I have kind of outlined here, and basically what they do. And we are going to be working with identity roles. And that brings me to HandsOn1. For HandsOn1, I am assuming that you have downloaded the ASP.NET Core Authentication app, which is what we are going to be using. And so the migrations have been done already in this app. And I think I'm going to have to open mine back up. And how can I tell the migrations have been done? The very first thing I do when I go into an app, an MVC app, is I look for the migration folder. Here it is. So, you know, if I didn't do the migrations on the computer I'm using, that indicates I am going to have to update database to actually create the database. And I see a data folder. So if I expand out that, I can see application DB context, which is for that identity system. It's for individual user accounts. And there's a migration folder for that too. Okay, so that indicates to me I'm going to have to do update database twice. I need to do it for application DB context, and that will get all of the identity tables into my database, and those tables are for registration. And then I need to do it a second time for members context, and that will get all of my app tables into the database. If I look at app settings, I can see that the name of this database is Playgroup. Okay, so that is going to be the name of my database. And just so happens mine is already created, but yours is not. So what you have to do over in the Package Manager console is you need to do update. And I would probably run a build first. I always think it's a good idea to do that. So let's do it. Okay, it should succeed. And then you're going to do update database minus context. So this is a parameter. And then we'll do application DB context. Press enter. And that will create the registration and user role tables. Then when you finish with that one, you'll need to do it again. And after minus context, you're going to do members context. And this is for our tables, okay, in our models. Okay, so you will press enter and it will generate those tables. And the names of the tables are in the context file. So you can see for the members class, I'm creating a parent table. For the child class, I'm creating a child table. And for the parent-child class, I'm creating a family table. Now, after you have done both of those commands, you are going to come over and you're going to make sure that the Playgroup database was created. And you're going to see a lot of tables. Okay, there are 3 that were created from the members context: child, family, and parent. All of the rest are basically coming from that application DB context, which is all of our registration and user tables. Okay, and then just to make sure these got populated, of course, you can right-click on any of them and view data. But they all should have data in them. And then right now, our identity tables, the ones for registration, don't have data. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run our app. And then you can kind of take a look at these different pages. This is basically for a play group. Okay, and you can make sure, you know, everything is working, at least that you can access everything. And then you are going to register. So you are going to create an account. And let's see. And I'm going to go ahead and register. And let's see, yeah, we don't have email confirmation, so you just click here. And then we can log in. I've done too many of these. All right, so you should see your login up here. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and exit out. Now, where that data went is under users, ASP.NET users. So I have several users in here because I've already used this a little bit. So we're going to go into view data. You guys are going to have one. And here's the one that I just added. Okay, but you can see that it's got the username, which is your email. And then the password is hashed, it's encrypted. There's a security stamp on there, a concurrency stamp. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Okay, and then there's other information that hasn't been filled in. And that in part is because we do not have everything installed for identity. And we are going to talk about how to do that in the next video.